I got to reading Luke chapter 1, um, the account where, Zechariah sees an angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord says that he is going to have a son, and he was to call him John. Um, and then, you know, later, Zechariah, verse 18, Zechariah said to the angel, "How can I be sure this will happen? I am an old man now, and my wife is also well along in years." Then the angel said, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the very presence of God. It was he who sent me to bring you this good news. But now, since you didn't believe what I said, you will be silent and unable to speak until the child is born." So, here we have a account, um, of, you know, Zachariah, just asking the angel, like, how can I be for sure that this will happen, right? And it doesn't say, I mean, the angel says that he doubted, but other than that, it doesn't really say that he had doubt, before we come to the verse, um, that says that where the angel said. So how did the angel, um Gabriel, how did the angel know that Zechariah had doubt? Um Now obviously he does say, well, you know, like, I'm of old age and my wife is of old age, but other than that, it kind of sounds like he's just, kind of confused and kind of like, you know, how is this, going to happen, and it brought me back to a message where I was talking about, um Peter. It was in the third, um message, or part three of, Jesus, walking on water. I made three um messages about that, or three parts to that message. And the last one, I talked about the possibility of Peter having, you know, two thoughts, and maybe perhaps he chose the right thought, like maybe perhaps part of him, you know, with him putting his foot in his mouth was being ignorant, but then he instead chose to be humble instead of, being ignorant. And as I was reading that, it brought me back to, when I talked about that, how the Bible doesn't really, cover that, and the Bible doesn't really say anything about that. But yet we see that in our human nature, we can have, you know, um, kind of like two different thoughts, and it just depends on which one we choose. And so, you know, I kind of see the similarity here where, even though the Bible doesn't really make it very clear, not until after the angel says, "Hey, you have doubt, and because of this, you're going to be speechless." Like before that, the Bible doesn't really make it, very, very, not a whole lot of, you know, clarity that there's just this doubt, other than it saying, um, like, other than, because the word that is used is, that's being used is, believe. And so, like, the angel says that he didn't believe. And so, um, when you read 18, verse 18 alone, it kind of makes you think, well, because it doesn't really say that he doesn't, have, belief, but just that he's like, well, how is this going, that, you know, doing the math, crunching the numbers, like, this doesn't work. This doesn't make any sense. I'm of old age. My wife is, getting to that old age, just like, and so you don't really get much of, the Bible telling us that he had, you know, unbelief. Because sometimes when we, question, when we're doing the math and questioning whether or not it's, possible, like, sometimes it's just in us to ask the Lord often, like, well, how is this gonna be possible? Um, and not that we intend to have disbelief, but sometimes, like, in our disbelief, yeah, we can often be crunching the numbers and going, how is this going to, happen? So it kind of seems kind of still severe for the angel to be like, because of your disbelief, you're going to be silent. But at the same time, it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't, have disbelief when, prophets are around or when angels are around, because, um, having disbelief when an angel is present, or a prophet is of the Lord is present, that's probably unwise to have a disbelief there. And so that's another takeaway. So mainly this message is mainly going through just, interesting thoughts, like, that it's an interesting thought how, you know the Bible doesn't always have to be, clear and tell us, every single detail for us to know that, hey, there was, disbelief there, or hey, there could have been, you know, ignorance, but that, they chose to humble themselves in that moment and things like that. And then the other interesting thought was, what I just, said about, like, if an angel of the Lord approaches you or a prophet approaches you, and you have, it's probably not wise to question.